To me. I think the Kindle thing would be cool. I've seen those before. I will look into it and see where the money comes from and see if we can um, maybe test one or two. I remember people using iPads for that like a few years back, and then it never happened. So but let's see how it goes. So, what we're doing in sociology of religion or something in that same realm, we're looking for a survey of what's happening now and what's important over the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to show you, let's see, I'm going to show you two tools so we don't overwhelm you with more of the things that I've already talked about in class. All the databases that I showed you, though, remember under the research guide in sociology, you can go into any of those databases and do a similar search. But we want to know, we want to look at everything that matters in books and everything that matters in articles, and we want to be able to narrow it down to what's important over the last 2 years, 5 years, that sort of a thing. And then if we just cruise the titles, we can get an impression of what's available, and then we can also start to narrow down and figure out what we want to do with our own research agenda. This is what people do all the time. So, first database is just like the library catalog, that search that we did first, but this searches is called WorldCat. This is all of the books in North America. It's just called WorldCat. And it's not all the books. That's hyperbole, isn't it? When you publish a book, the title is really important. They don't necessarily have abstracts, so maybe like the table of contents, but there's other clues that you're searching for. But one of the big ones is the subject heading or the assigned keywords. Either and both of those are a negotiated moment where people are trying to overly boil down the topic of a book or a chapter into specific words. The Library of Congress has done this for years for a lot of the books, and we can search for those. So all we have to do is find one book. So I'm going to do that same search. So, Sociology of John. I put it in quotes so all those keywords stick together. Otherwise, it'll find sociology here and religion there. So I'm looking through all the books in academic libraries in North America. There's 10,000 books on the sociology of religion. But we want to find that subject heading. And I want to find one that's, oh, here we go. There's one called the Sociology of Religion. By the way, if you see this little UNIV of Utah, that means you can check it out. If you don't see the little UNIV of Utah, that's something that you should reach out to me and say, hey, let's get this for the library deal. So I'm going to go, oh, it's even Max Weber. This is a famous book. But, it's a smidge in the past, isn't it? 1963. You might use that for some formal constructions or frameworks of the elements of religion, the elements of community, the elements of strong ties, religious ties, things like that. But if we want to find out what are people writing about now, well, this is called a record of that one book. And if you wanted to, you could click on Max Weber, or you could click on the translator and you'd find all the other books. But here, this descriptor, these are assigned by librarians, sometimes the publisher, sometimes librarians of Congress do these. And you'll notice that religion and sociology shows up a couple times. That's because they're taking multiple records and kind of squeezing them together. So it doesn't mean that they're different. And here you can see there's lowercase, uppercase. It's just different records smooshed together. So let's try this one. Religion and sociology. So when we click on this, the librarians, the legion of librarians throughout history and throughout the world, there's a canon for what falls under this. And when we click on that, in this catalog, we'll see all the books that are in that topic. And you see that it went bigger because some of them have sociology, religion in different parts, but they all have that descriptor. 18,000 books. When you click on that, it's overwhelming. Let me show you how to narrow down from there. Before we narrow down, though, it's useful to know that this number right here And this number right here represents the number of libraries worldwide indexed in this. So this isn't reliably covering all the libraries in the world. It's mostly North American academic libraries. But you can see like what the most popular books are. So American Grace, published in 2010, was so popular that it's the number one book in North America. But what if I want to narrow down by date? Like, what have you done for me lately, religion and sociology? So this is one way. What you would do is I would encourage you in a survey, don't try and necessarily take notes or write things down, but maybe have like a cool drink and just go through and see what are they talking about. So there's maybe division, there's capitalism, so maybe nationalism, capitalism. There's the Max Weber book again. Here's how people misuse it. There's politics again. So now we've doubled our theme in politics. There's history. There's more nationalism. So you can start to see maybe it's more political than others. I mean, that was like a grossly oversimplified survey, but you get the idea. What if we want to look at stuff that's happened recently? It's not obvious. This interface is really dated. But if you go to limit right here, you can narrow down to a more current era. So let's limit results by year. So we're still in that same search. You can see the search up here. But let's do, seems like 2016 is the moment where everything changed for some reason. And let's say 2024, in case there's some pre-press stuff being indexed here. And now when we search, we still are getting 2,511 things, but it's not 18,000 anymore, and it's more recent. And then we can see what's important. So this one about a personal story. This one talks about God, so we can presume that it's not exclusively about Christianity. So you could see the prevalence of different religions being looked at. Here's a perspective of men unwittingly turned divine. Here's Japan. So it's interesting how diverse it's changed when we go from the big scale down to most recent years. If you find something that looks good to you, just click on into it. And this is where you might grab notes, or you might say, hey, Dale, buy this, and I'll get it for the library. But you could go and see, what are they talking about? Alternative sociologies of religion? So this is, so what would it look like had it emerged as an alternate reality to Christianity as a dominant one? So again, with a cool drink, part of what you're doing is discovering what you don't know. Part of what you're doing is validating what you do know. That's WorldCat. And this is what I'm going to do to buy books. I'll go through and see what we're missing, and then I'll buy it according to popularity. It's a cheeky way of doing it. So let's go back to databases. Web of Science was great. Let me show you Scopus. It's similar. It has a lot of content overlap, and you can sort by citations. Scopus. Also in that Research Guide Index. But now we're looking at scholarly articles. Maybe we'll try the keywords thing again. This one we might have to be more clever. Books are very formally described, and articles are a little more loosey-goosey. Sociology of religion. And again, it's in quotes. Let's see what we get. We might have to do sociology and religion in the title. Well, 1600. So here's where we're getting into religion scholars, gender scholars, education, sociology. We're getting into multiple disciplines. But sociology, that's a strong keyword. That'll help us out. So let's go again to the keywords. In scholarly articles, they're typically written by the authors, but this database shows them in order of what did they write. So I'm going to view all. For this part of the survey, you're going to go through and just see what are the words that are showing up. And again, you can do date ranges. This is going back to like the mid 1990s. Books go back way farther because we only have to deal with the record. The whole book isn't digitized. But for scholarly articles, people wanted full text so much that we typically don't go back into the stuff that we don't have full text for. So mid 1990s. But here you can see secularization might be growing. There's Max Weber again. There's particular religions. Oh, look at this, it goes even farther. Gender, there's a name. There's concepts. I mean, you get the idea. What you can do is just go through these and see what is the most written about thing. What if you're interested in something in particular and you want to see what's written about that? Say, for example, you're interested in, I saw Confucianism. Let's do that. Religion and sociology and, and, I don't know if it matters if it's capitalized, Confucianism. Let's just look in the abstract for these three keywords. So that means the authors thought it was so important that it should be mentioned at least once. So topic religion, topic Confucianism, those kind of like overlap with each other. Sociology might be a methodology. So is there another method or another lens or another discipline? These are questions we get to ask. Oh, cool. There's Max. Look at Max Weber shows up a lot. This could be an indicator that we need to read the Max Weber book, or maybe books about it. And on this one, you can sort by number of times cited. So when we're looking, especially in scholarship, it's beneficial to narrow down and focus very tightly on something. So when we look at a whole discipline, that's a really terrible place to start unless you're like you have a complete paradigm shift. It's very rare. It's usually something that somebody does towards the later parts of their career after they've established themselves and they've sorted out all these different things. So don't feel bad if it's like, let's see, what do we have? Something very, it might seem light. Yeah. So how Max Weber looked at, so this is an analysis of Max Weber's text, and it's analysis of what Max Weber said about Confucianism, and it's about what Confucianism says about the care of the self. That's really niche, isn't it? If you find something that's good, where you're like, oh, that's close to what I want to do, open it up, look at their methodology, look at how they gathered data, look at how they came to their conclusions and crunched their data. This is what you'll be doing, and this is how it gets done. You find somebody who's done it pretty close to what you're doing, and then move a little bit, and then do it in your own way, in that own angle. And this is going to take forever to open. I like how the graphic is pulsing as if something's going to happen. Here's our Find It button. Every time you find something, save it. And then you can later go through the abstracts in a dedicated reading time, like on Fridays. I used to do this where I would just read abstracts on Friday mornings with my coffee, just to get up to speed on what was being written about in library literature. Didn't take very long. Oh, and you can request it too, if we don't have a physical resource. Oh, this is from 2002. Well, okay, you get the idea. Now I'm going down a rabbit hole. As you go throughout this, here we go, here's the abstract. As you go throughout this, be a fearless tosser to the side of things that don't quite match, or if they bore you. Right now, you're scanning the literature and you're looking around for seeing what interests you, what matters, what exists. And if you read even just like a couple sentences ago, okay, that's interesting. If it's worthwhile, save the citation. If it's not worthwhile, toss it to the side. I've seen grad students and professors before have like a folder full of papers back in the paper era, and they would literally like cast it to the side, just like that. So we don't have to read the whole thing to get the impression of what's going on, but we can skim the abstract and the first page and the conclusion to get a gist of whether we want to do more engaged reading or not. Let me know how it goes, and I will follow up with you on the Kindle thing and see how that goes.